Welcome to the Warp. I'm Reda. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Cosmic Conflict, the new expansion for Cosmic Encounter from Fantasy Flight Games. This is the second expansion. The first expansion is Cosmic Incursion, which came out about this time last year. Like Cosmic Incursion, Cosmic Conflict comes with the same amount of stuff. It comes with an extra player color, 20 new alien powers, and a special set of cards to be used as a variant. So, what do we get in Cosmic Conflict? First of all, we are getting a 7th color, or 6th if you still only have the base game, which plays 5. And this is a black system. Black planets, black destiny cards, black spaceships. I have to say, the black spaceships, they are pretty badass. I play with purple, but if I had to choose a second color, or if I couldn't play purple for some reason, I would go with the black, because they're pretty cool. The other thing that comes with Cosmic Conflict is the Hazard Deck. The Hazard Deck is an idea that's been around for many years, and it's been implemented in a couple of different ways, though never published in any other edition of Cosmic Encounter. So this is the first time that we're getting a Hazard Deck, and how does it work? The way it works is you have on your Destiny cards, there are 3 Destiny cards, and one of them has a little mark in the corner of the Destiny card that shows you that a hazard should be drawn. Now, these cards have been in the game since it was published a couple of years ago, but there was never a hazard deck now. It was mentioned in the rules, so people knew it was coming, and it is finally here. So how do the hazards work, and what do they look like? This is the back of the deck of the hazard cards, and the hazard cards themselves, they look like this. So this is how they work. If you draw a Destiny card that has that mark, then you draw a card from the hazard deck, top card, and you read what's on there. So for instance, this one is called Cosmic Nebula. During this encounter, any alien powers that are used are immediately zapped. So it's something that influences or changes or alters the encounter in a particular way. Most of the hazards are only played during that encounter that they're drawn. Some, however, stick around. So for instance, this one is called the Cosmic Guardian. And as you can see, it's got this little red strip at the bottom of the card that says this card remains in play. Cosmic Guardian, while the Cosmic Guardian is in play, all attack cards higher than 20 are considered to be negotiate cards. So that's a pretty serious effect that's going to have on the game, and it stays around until another card comes into play that replaces it. Probably the one hazard card that everyone was sort of expecting and is in here is called Reverse Rewards. Now, there used to be an effect in the Destiny deck in the previous editions of Cosmic Encounter, some of them, called Reverse Rewards. And the way that works is if you are an ally, normally an offensive ally in the game, lands on the colony if their side wins. A defensive ally draws rewards. And the rewards are either cards from the deck or ships out of the warp. Reverse Rewards switches that. So if you're allied with the offense and your side wins, you don't land on the planet, you get rewards, cards or ships. And if you are defending and allied with the defense and win, then you land on the colony that's being attacked. So it's something that I think is kind of an interesting dynamic change to the game, the Reverse Rewards, and I'm glad to see it in the Hazard deck. So far the Hazard deck has been a mixed bag with the groups that I play with. Some players, they love it. Some, they've had some pretty negative consequences as a result of the hazards, so their immediate reaction was, I don't like the hazards. I like them. I think, however, that I will probably end up using the hazard deck the way that I'm used to using it, which is the only time you would draw a hazard is if you intend to make a second encounter. And I think that takes a little bit of the randomness out. You have no idea when a hazard is going to be drawn normally. This way, you know if you want to make a second encounter on your turn, that you're going to have to face whatever's in the hazard deck. And if you don't want to face it, you can just end your turn after the first encounter. Or instead draw some tech if you're using tech. So that's the additional card part of the expansion. Let's get to the aliens. 20 aliens. Out of the 20, 9 have been previously published and 11 are brand new. But even the old ones are a little bit different. Some of them are. So what do we have? We have the cavalry. And the way the cavalry works is, as an ally, they get to play an encounter card on their side, and if it's an attack card, it adds to the main player's total. So it's a very good alien to have when you're a main player, and you can get him to ally with your side. It's also good for Cavalry because it lets him get rid of low attack cards that are in his hand, and you can even play a negotiate card on your side. It only actually works if the main player negotiates, in which case both of you would collect compensation from the opposing main player. We have the Changeling, another classic alien that's been around since the Eon days. This one has a slight change. Normally, Changeling is a mandatory power, and the way it works is if I'm the cavalry and I'm attacking the Changeling says, well, let's switch powers, and it's mandatory. So I would be the Changeling until my next encounter, and the other player would be the cavalry. But this way, the way it works, it's still a mandatory power. However, it has two aspects to it. Instead of changing, I can just draw a card from the deck. So it's nice to be able to have a little control over what alien you're going to take away from another player. It can be very strategic that way. We also have the Empath, another classic alien. This one has also been changed a little bit. It used to be that Empath was mandatory. If Empath played to negotiate and the opponent played an attack card, both cards would become negotiate cards. But now Empath is optional. Empath can decide, hey, if I want to take compensation from you, or I don't want to force a deal situation, I can do that. The other thing is that if Empath's opponent plays a negotiate and Empath plays an attack card, Empath can still force a deal situation by turning them both into negotiates. So it's optional, which is nice. Another one is Filth. Filth is another one of the old aliens, and this one, the way it works is you can never coexist on a planet with the Filth. The Filth's ships are so stinky that you never want to be with them. And if you attack the Filth's planet and you win, Filth's ships go to the warp normally, but you don't get to land because the planet has to be fumigated. So all you can do is empty the planet and hope that sometime soon you get to attack that same empty planet and then land on a subsequent encounter. So that one has not really been changed, and it's still pretty formidable. One of the new ones is Graviton. Graviton is a new alien. The way it works is when your cards are played, but before you reveal them, the Graviton player can say 1s or 10s, and any attack cards that are revealed, you only use that digit on the attack card. So, for instance, it says on here, if you say 10s, an attack 40 would become an attack 4, and an attack 9, a 0-9, would become an attack 0. So that is a way to really make the ships and the allies that you have involved even more valuable, because the totals are going to be much closer together with the attack values. Another new one is Glutton. Glutton is a resource alien. Every time you retrieve one or more ships from the warp, you actually get to take an extra 2. And anytime you draw cards from the deck or from another player's hand, again, you take an extra 2. So this one's going to pile up on cards and can really risk ships more frequently because they can get them out more quickly than other players. Here's one that came out in the Mayfair edition. It's called Industrialist, and it has been changed a little bit. Anytime the Industrialist loses an encounter, they get to take that attack card, if they played an attack card, and they can put it on the alien sheet, and in future encounters, they can add the value of that attack card to all of their encounters, add or subtract. However, one of the new elements of the Industrialist is that if you beat Industrialist and they play a card that you really don't want him to add to the stack, you can instead say, you know what, you win that encounter and I'll just lose. I don't know how often that's going to come up, but it is a way to sort of temper how quickly Industrialist's stack can grow and become very difficult to beat later in the game. Another new one is the Invader. And the way the Invader works is you get 3 special invasion destiny cards that are shuffled into the destiny deck. And when another player draws an invasion card, the Invader interrupts their turn and gets to attack that player. The Invader also can immediately discard his hand and draw a brand new hand each time he does this. When he draws an invasion card, it basically works like a wild destiny. He can attack any player that he likes. So this is another one that cycles through cards more quickly and gets more turns, which is very nice. Another new one is Lunatic. Lunatic, very straightforward. Whenever Lunatic is a main player, he can ally against himself. So always going to be on the winning side in some case. If Lunatic's being attacked, he can put a ship or two on the offensive side and still have that colony. And if he's attacking someone else, he can get some rewards if he ends up not winning as the offense. Another new one is Mimic. Mimic, also very straightforward. Alien copies hand size of his opponent. It's a mandatory alien, so if you attack Mimic and you have more cards, then Mimic gets to draw cards to fill up his hand until he has the same number of cards you have. If you have fewer cards than Mimic, Mimic gets to discard cards until they have the same number. Occasionally you will probably be in a situation as Mimic where you might have to throw away a good card if your opponent has very few cards, but more often what you're going to get to do is get rid of cards that you don't want, to negotiate cards if you don't need those, or low attack cards. So it's terrific for hand management. Here's one of the classic aliens. It's called the Prophet. Prophet is an alien that, if he's not involved in the encounter as a main player or an ally, he can predict who he thinks is going to win, and if he's correct, he gains a free colony wherever he likes. If he's wrong, then the winner, the actual winner of the encounter, can select any 2 ships of the Prophet and send them to the warp. So there is some risk, but if the Prophet is filling up his foreign colonies with plenty of ships, then he can predict with reckless abandon. Another new one is Relic. Relic is an alien that gains free colonies anytime another player draws a new hand. So people have to really pay attention to how many cards they have left. They may end up allying with the defense and trying to get cards as rewards just to prevent Relic from drawing a new hand. If Relic draws a new hand, then he gets to free all of his ships from the warp. So cycling through the cards is something that Relic is looking forward to. This is a classic alien. It's called Saboteur. It was formerly known as a terrorist, would plant bombs on players' planets, and players wouldn't know where the bombs were until they tried to land a ship on there, and then all ships on that planet would go to the warp. Saboteur, very similar. The way it works is, instead of having to secretly write down where all the bombs are, the Saboteur player is given tokens, and these trap tokens, they are either decoys that don't really do anything, or they're the actual bombs that go off, and they get a certain number of these depending on the number of players. And every encounter, you can switch them around. When one bomb goes off, that bomb token, or whenever you land on a planet, you reveal the token to see if it's a dud or a bomb, and or a trap rather. And if it does go off, then all the ships there go to the warp, and that regardless, that token goes on to the Saboteur's alien sheet, and on a subsequent encounter, you can get him in. It's much trickier getting those traps to go off, because players know which planets have a token. They're going to focus their attention on the other planets in the system, if there are any. I think one of the things we've discovered is you really want to try to put a token on every planet in at least one system, because players are going to be much more likely to expose those tokens more quickly. One of the other new aliens is Sadist. This is one of the aliens that has an alternate win condition. So if the Sadist can win the game through the normal method of getting 5 foreign colonies, or if every player has 8 ships that are either in the warp, captured by a player, or out of the game completely, then Sadist wins. There's not a lot that Sadist can do to influence that, except ally a lot with the player that he thinks is going to win. So that's not really going to change too much. But the thing that I like best about the alternate win aliens is that they're great to have in multi-alien games, where one of your aliens is going to be an alternate win one. Right now I believe there's only 4. Hopefully they'll get a couple more out so that you can have a 6-player game, 5 players a game, more than just 4 players, and do the double aliens. We'll see how that goes. Siren is another alien that has been around for a while. Whenever Siren wins as a defensive main player, then get a free colony. This one has been changed slightly. It used to be that Siren could lure a player to his or her home system on pretty much any encounter. Now Siren, if it's in a foreign colony, Siren has to have a foreign system. Siren has to have a colony in that system. in order to use the power to lure a player. But then Siren also gets to pick which planet is going to be attacked, which is also a nice little extra twist. One of the new aliens is called the Claw. And this is kind of a fun alien to play, simply because it adds a lot of tension to the game. And what you do for the Claw is you choose a card from your hand, as long as it's not a negotiate card, and you put it face down on your alien sheet, and that is your Claw. And if another player reveals a copy of that card, then you take any planet from their system and put it in your system, throwing all the ships that are on it into the warp. And that planet now counts as a foreign colony for the Claw. And if the Claw lands on that colony later on, it also counts as a home colony. So there's a lot going on. Who knows if the Claw will ever be revealed? That's going to depend on what you put down as your Claw. The first game that we played, it was a reinforcement +3, and it definitely came up pretty early on. Everyone likes to throw down those reinforcements. So that one is fun, but not quite as fun as the Trickster, another new alien. This one falls under the category of dumb fun, but basically the way it works is when the Trickster is a main player and doesn't think that he has a good chance of winning, instead of actually going through the normal encounter mechanic of playing an encounter card, the Trickster can say, you know what, I'm going to put a cosmic token in one of my hands. You pick the hand that you think it's in, and if you pick the token, then you win, and if you don't, then the Trickster wins. And what we like to do is we like to put one hand very close to the player and one hand far away, and taunt them. So that's it's dumb, but it's fun, and it's nice for when you just look at your hand and you say, you know what, I don't think I could possibly win, but you know what, I have a 50-50 chance. Visionary is one of the classic aliens, very straightforward. When your main player is a visionary, you tell your opponent any encounter card that you want them to play, and if they have that encounter card, they have to play it. Negotiate cards, that comes up a lot. Low attack cards, like an attack 6. It's definitely a formidable one. Warhawk is new. Warhawk basically is an alien that never negotiates, and if you are encountering Warhawk, if you play Negotiate, it's turned into an attack 0. If the Warhawk reveals a Negotiate, it actually turns into a Morph card. And Morph card copies the card that the opponent plays. And if both of them end up being Negotiate cards, they're actually both turned into attack 0. So there's no negotiating, there's no dealing, there's no compensation with the Warhawk. Finally, there is the Xenophile. And this is an alien that gets stronger depending on how many colonies are in Xenophile's system. So they can add or subtract 3 to their encounter total for each colony that is in their home system. So if early in the game a player is attacking Xenophile and has 2 allies and they win, that's going to be ±9 that Xenophile can then add or subtract to his encounter totals from that point forward. He also never loses his power for having too few colonies in his home system. So he's happy to give away a couple of colonies early in the game because it's just going to make him stronger later on. So that's the review. I like these aliens a lot. I think that this brings the total up to 90, which is absolutely terrific for Cosmic Encounter. It's still not quite enough for my taste. If we can double that number over the next couple of years, I will be thrilled to see that many additional alien powers in the game. We're up to 7 players now with Cosmic Incursion and Cosmic Conflict combined. I think that Cosmic Encounter is a much richer and more enjoyable game with more players. I don't really enjoy it with 3 players. 4 is my minimum to play, but I do enjoy 5, 6, and 7 players in a game. I've played Cosmic Encounter with 12 players a few times, and was it chaotic? Yes, but it was also tremendous fun. Cosmic Encounter, great game, very social, virtually no downtime for any player. Cosmic Conflict is a terrific expansion for the game. The black spaceships alone make it worth it. 20 great aliens to add into the game. The hazard deck, love it or leave it. It's certainly something that's easy to implement, and that is what's great about Cosmic Encounter expansions, is they're not complex, they're very simple to add in, there's not a very high learning curve on any of it, and with the different color alerts on the aliens, it's easy to sort of bring in new players with the simple aliens first, and then let them get more complex as you get on. That's the Warp. I hope you'll join me again, and if I do another one of these, then that'll make it easier.